Wednesday, August 8th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we preview a brand new anime, Baccano.
Let's do this.
So it rained overnight.
It didn't even rain that much. I mean, it just rained.
Well, up here it didn't rain that much. Down further south of us it rained quite a bit.
Yeah, but it wasn't like, OMG, there's water, all the cars are like swimming around and, you're up to your neck in water and the sewage is coming up out of the sewer, anything like that.
So apparently, according to you, there's no sliding scale if it rained a lot. It's either torrential floods or nothing?
Pretty much, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
I mean, if I can walk around and with my umbrella and be like, do, that's rain. And then if I can walk around without an umbrella, then it's
Well, I point out that
rain.
when it rained, you weren't up and you didn't have an umbrella, but it must have rained pretty hard because all the subways in New York City got completely fucked.
That's not because it rained too much. That's because the subways really suck at handling rain.
The thing is, while the subways generally do suck at handling rain, usually, no matter how bad it rains, only the Lexington Avenue line goes out. Everything else is usually okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I got to the city today, and I go down into the subway
Now,
not knowing anything's
there were
wrong.
portents of doom well before, because I remember I get to the train station. I left early because it was wet outside from the rain, and because my bike is broken, and by broken I just mean I have a hole in a tube, and my patch kit is so old that the adhesive doesn't work anymore, and no store anywhere near our house sells bicycle tubes.
Uh-huh.
So I was going to order it on Amazon, but for all that, I'll just wait for the weekend and drive to the other bike shop, because last weekend we tried to go to the bike shop to learn that in the time between the last time I had gone and going this time, it had gone out of business and emptied.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I guess that is what happens. Businesses just suddenly go out of business and disappear without warning.
Yeah, that's what they do. I mean, you don't go out of business with warning. You don't know.
Yeah, you do. A lot of places, when they go out of business, they're like, all right, we're going out of business. Time for the going out of business
That's
sale.
usually if you go out of business on purpose and not out of business because you sucked.
I don't know. Maybe someone had leprosy or something. And
I don't know.
yeah. But suffice to say, I had to rollerblade to work, which usually is kind of awesome because I really like rollerblading, despite the fact that, unlike the Midwest where I grew up, as far as I'm concerned, there are no sidewalks in most of New York. There are things that look like sidewalks. You can walk on them pretty well, but they're not really sidewalks. If you try to rollerblade on them, you just fall on your face.
Well, that's because they're digga. They're not like these big, wide, smooth concrete things.
Well, they're concrete. They're just narrow, cracked, and dirty.
Yeah, they're meant for walking. They're not meant for anything else.
Yeah, and the other problem is that I don't know what the laws are here. I'm not sure if rollerbladers are pedestrians or vehicles.
Why don't you look it up on the internet?
I didn't get a chance to. I thought about it while I was rollerblading home, and then we came home to find that the website was down, and now here we are.
Yeah, apparently someone DDoS'd not our website, but the machine that our website is on.
My guess is that someone else on sharing our machine did something.
I think it might not even been our machine. It could have been anyone in the whole data center there.
I get the impression that someone did something untoward to draw the ire of someone else, and that person was summarily removed from Linode.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I left really early because I had to rollerblade, and if anyone of you out there has never rollerbladed, rollerblading on wet terrain is pretty much a death sentence, unless you have special wheels. You're just going to die, especially if there's hills or grit or anything.
Really? I wouldn't think that it would be so bad.
You lose track. Well, the thing is, the more traction you get with rollerblade wheels, the more they wear out. And I have long run wheels that are really, really hard, and they're great for speed skating. But when it's wet, they just kind of slide left and right. And if you're going too fast, you'll just kind of fall over suddenly. And you can't prevent it because when you try to stick a foot out to kind of catch yourself and go in a different direction, it just doesn't catch and you just slide.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of awesome.
All right. Can you grab onto a tree or anything?
Not really. You're going too fast. It's more a matter of you can't regain control because you can't grip the ground with your wheels in order to turn. Because you have to turn to change your momentum or you're just going to fall over.
Uh-huh.
It's complicated. Rollerblading is not as easy as a lot of people make it out to be, but it's not as difficult as people. Anyway, the point is I ended up at the train station earlier than I expected. And there was all these warnings like, warning, trains will not be delayed here, but may run into substantial delays in the Bronx due to flood conditions.
I didn't hear any such message when I got to the train station, which was Not much later after you, but later.
They announced it 3 times, pretty spaced apart.
Yeah, I got there later than you, but not much later.
And then they
I
announced
heard no
it
such
on
message.
the train that I rode. I don't know, were you on the same train as me?
No, I said I was on a later train, but not a much later train. I was on the,
In fact,
before 8, I was on the train.
The the Crazy Express that leaves before us, like before the train we usually take, was actually there until almost right before the other train left because there were delays further down the road.
Uh-huh.
But luckily, they must have fixed all that stuff well before Scott got into the city and Emily got into the
Which
city.
was maybe a half hour later.
I think all the ass early trains that the crazy commuters take got held up.
Who knows?
But
Whatever.
luckily, my train gets off well before there's any chance of flooding, so I never really have a problem.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the subways were totally fucked, and the buses were then fucked as everyone tried to take them, and a bunch of streets in Midtown were closed, and randomly, unrelated to all that, one subway station was closed due to a police investigation, and...
Yeah, I mean, I got to the city on the train, which is perfectly normal. I didn't hear about any trouble. It wasn't, I'd been outside. It wasn't really that wet. It looked like it rained last night, and the sun was out, and it was hot, but it didn't look like there was a flood or anything. There were some puddles, and that's about it. And then down in the subway, they're like, there are no trains going in either direction.
It was great. I saw on notices, they were like, the Lexington Avenue 4 line is not running between, Brooklyn Bridge and 86th Street, which is pretty much the entirety of its useful length for us.
The message I heard was, between in the Bronx and in Brooklyn. And I was like, okay, there are no stops anywhere because the train goes from the Bronx to Brooklyn. So it's not stopping. It's not even in Manhattan. So I'm like, okay, I will take the S to Times Square, and then I will take the NQRW to work.
Yeah, because the 456, the green train, as a lot of people who aren't from New York call it, it tends to flood in a few places pretty often when it rains. So if it's down, people just kind of, all right, whatever, and take another subway.
Yep, so I was going to take the NQRW. So I went over there, and I took the S was not running. The 3 S trains were just sitting there. Now, the S train is a train that goes maybe a couple miles. It's not even. It
goes a distance that I routinely walk because it's not worth the hassle to walk down there.
It's like the shortest train ride ever. It goes from Grand Central to Times Square. It's like a 5-block train.
There's a bunch of them. They just go back and forth 24/7, just back and forth,
back
and forth.
Not even. It's like a 2 or 3 avenue block train. It's really short. But if you want to go from Times Square to Grand Central.
Times Central?
Yes. If you want to go to either of those 2 places from the other place in a hurry, there's the S train. And it's actually kind of crowded. And they have 3 of them that just go back and forth all the time. And they were just sitting there, not moving. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. I mean, they can't even, suck up the water or drain the water out of this little tiny train track that's very short. What the hell? So I took the 7 train, which makes the same trip. And that wasn't too bad, taking the 7 train. And I get to Times Square. So I'm looking for the NQRW. I get over there. It's pretty crowded, this NQRW. And an N train comes. And people are, squeezing into the N train. And I'm like, I will wait for the next train. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. And an N train comes. And I try to get into it, but that's not happening.
See, it's one thing when you see a train and it's crowded and you think, you know what, I'll wait for the next one, or I'll wait and take the local or something. But every now and then you run into that situation where there's a train that even if you wanted to get onto it, you could not physically push your way past the door.
Yep, so I'm like, okay, I know what I'll do. I'll be all clever. I'll take the queue, because there are all these people trying to get NRWs. I was going to get the queue, right? So I'm waiting over by the queue, and it's nice, on the other side of the platform, it's pretty quiet. Everyone wants the NRWs. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait. A long time. I wait so long that there's people lining up the stairs. The platform is full, and people are lined up above the platform elsewhere.
Now, what are those people thinking? Obviously, there's a problem. They might as well go take a cab.
So, no Q comes, no R's come, no W's come. Eventually, another N comes.
In a situation like that, you kind of wait. You figure, maybe this is the apocalypse and the end time. No, because you're sitting there, and eventually a train's just going to go by full of skeletons or something.
That'd be awesome. But no.
Kind of like those creepy-ass garbage trains that go by every now and then at night.
Yeah, so anyway.
You ever see one of those?
No. So what happens is this N comes, and of course people get off the N. So I go, aha, here's my chance. I got with the people who were getting off the N and used their momentum to get the hell out of there. And I went up, and I got a cab, and I went to work for $15.
Wow.
Yeah, because I wasn't going to walk all that way in that deathly heat.
Meanwhile, because I had my own adventure, because I avoided all transit problems. Now, had I driven to work, I would have been fucked. Because New York City, regardless of the subway problems, there are, highways and freeways, and then there are these things called parkways. Now, in New York, a parkway means that you can't have any commercial traffic on it.
That's what it means pretty much in all the Northeast.
It was probably made 100 fucking years ago. It's probably windy with dangerous old rusty guardrails. It's probably nothing like a real freeway. And almost all of them followed a river of some kind.
Yeah, parkways are generally like these highways that are just for cars, and they're used a lot for commuting and such.
Even though they shouldn't be. Like the Taconic, one of the biggest commuter roads around here, was made back in the day so that people who own cars, who happen to own a car in New York City, could have a nice place to drive, like a fun, windy, mountainy road to drive on to go up and picnic in the upstate parts. And now it's a commuter road, so it's still windy, and now that just makes it deadly.
Yep.
But they all follow these rivers that theoretically are supposed to take the water away. But those rivers over the years have clogged up to the point that they're basically just trickles. I mean, I can spit more than these things have water in them. And when it rains, the parkways just turn into the rivers. And every time it rains at all, my commute turns into like this 4-hour nightmare. So now that I take the train, I just got to work, no problem. I get off the train, weather's fine. I start walking up the mile to run my work, up this mountain. And suddenly it starts pouring rain, and I realize that I don't have an umbrella.
Punned.
So I hid in the woods for 10 minutes, the rain stopped, and then I continued on my quest.
Uh-huh.
I got to work, and no one was fucking there because they were all stuck in traffic.
Yeah, apparently, if I would have gotten to work on time, someone said that there was basically no one there, and it was a ghost town. So I guess it's kind of okay that I got to work late. And then I was going to go home from work, and I went to the website, and they said, the subway still isn't working. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I go, and I'm like, okay, let's see what the bus is like. And I could take this bus.
Did you take the bus?
No.
I've never taken a bus in the city.
The subway started working again, and there was no one down there. So I was like, woohoo! And I just took the subway back to the train station and went home. Yeah, the subway just suddenly started working, and I got on it before it became stupidly crowded, full of people who realized it was working again.
Right, so technically that wasn't a tangent, because as Dave and Joel like to make fun of, I guess that was the opening kind of free flow, let's talk about our day.
Yeah, but the thing is, as bad as it is in New York City when shit goes wrong, when everything works, it's not so bad.
Which is honestly 99% of the time.
Yeah, but it's like the system just can't handle anything going wrong at all.
Well, I think part of the problem
exactly at capacity
is just the fact that, New York City is a big place, and a lot of people live there, and people keep moving there, but most of the subways were made, 50, 60 years ago. Well, more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them haven't changed very much over the years.
Yeah.
Like, there's this running gag in the city of the 2nd Avenue subway that is never going to get built, but they're actually working on building it now, and it'll be done in, I think, 2013. So if Quetzalcoatl doesn't come, we'll get a new subway.
The thing that just bothers me is it seems like there are some extreme measures that could be taken to fix a situation like this, and then no one bothers to take them. Or that they're, it's logistically impossible.
There was a vote that we actually voted on in this area a while ago, whether or not to spend a whole bunch of money to make transit like 1,000,000 times better and fix all the current problems.
I voted yes.
I voted yes, and most New Yorkers voted no because they're dumbasses.
Good job.
Thing is, though, we can't complain because, honestly, New York City has some of the best public transit in the world. Like, hands down.
Yeah, that's pretty sad, actually. If public transit was awesome, it'd be like, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And you'd be riding these nice, comfortable cars.
Hey, for me, public transit's awesome because I get to ride the nice new fancy Metro North trains. I take the local.
Yeah, it's still,
It's this nice air-conditioned car. It's all clean. The seats are big. They got nice dividers by the head so I don't have to smell or see the person next to me.
Yeah, but it's, it's not everything.
I also learned recently it is against the rules of New York City to occupy more than one seat on a subway, no matter the circumstances.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen some people who merely by their girth took up 2 or 3 seats. So technically, those people can be kicked off the subway, and I find that hilarious.
That's one of those rules that isn't enforced. Like, you're not allowed to walk between the subway cars. People do it anyway.
Thing is, I've never seen someone who wasn't a shady person do that.
I've seen punk kids do it.
Yeah, it's always punk kids doing something shady. Or causing trouble.
Yeah.
Or it's those DVD sellers.
Yeah.
Those bootleg sellers who wander around the subway, like, DVD, you want DVD?
Yep, those guys. Those guys are all right, though.
Eh.
Okay, so
If you couldn't tell, we're stalling for time because there's just no goddamn anime news worth talking about.
there's no anime, manga, or comic news. It all kind of sucks.
Well, nothing we care about at all, and nothing any of you would care about. I mean, Otakon officially released their numbers, but a lot of people went to Otakon. Otakon counts differently from other cons. We talked about this last year and the year before.
Yeah. All right, so here's my crap-ass news. You ready?
I'm ready.
So, okay, my news isn't the news itself, because the news itself is not what I care about, right? And in fact, the news is that I don't care about the news. I don't know if that's news, because that would be old news. Whatever.
It's not news. It's Geeknights.
So apparently, all the nerds are getting excited because someone named Gugino, is going to be in the Watchmen movie as some character. And I want to say that, I don't know who this person is or whatever, but I keep seeing lately a lot of these film newses, and it seems like anytime there's even the slightest thing to say about a movie, especially a movie that has anything to do with nerdiness, right? Everyone's just like, OMG, here's a possible cast. OMG, so-and-so is directing such and such.
That is a common
OMG,
pastime among nerds and geeks. Whenever you think about what if they made a movie about, I don't know, Forgotten Realms, the first thing people think is, well, who would play Elminster? And then they talk about it, and the answer is obviously Ian McClellan.
But I mean, this explosive news about even the tiniest changes to movies, especially when 90% of these things aren't verified or confirmed or in a press release or anything.
Oh, I can
They're
answer.
just something some nerd either came up with or dug up, or some tabloid person.
I can answer why this happens
somewhere.
pretty easily. One, the blogosphere is more reactionary than the royalists during the French Revolution.
It's not the blogosphere at all. It's like these non-blog sort of movie websites.
Well, no, that was just the first point. Just in general, why things like this happen. Two is the fact that because generally muggles are not on the internet in force. I mean, normal people, non-geeks, non-nerds, people who aren't terribly motivated about the things that all of us care about, they use Google and Yahoo and whatever to find the website about Britney Spears and look at it and check their email and then check the news and the weather. And they don't really care about anything else on the internet. So the primary force of voice on the internet is people like us who care about these things a lot.
But that's the thing. Who the fuck cares about this? I mean...
Who cares about your stupid video game news?
But I'm saying, okay, maybe... I don't even know. Is there going to be a Watchmen movie? There's no guarantee there's going to be a Watchmen movie. Probably, right? They're deciding a cast. You don't know this is going to be the final cast. This could change at any moment. If they actually made the movie, is it on the screen? If not, everything is just bullshit. It's bullshit until there's a movie in the movie theater.
Wow.
And there's posters on the walls. It's just bullshit crap to sort of, I don't know, God. What the fuck do you care? And why are you wasting your time paying attention to it?
I pretty much disagree with you. I don't think it's a problem at all. It doesn't bother me.
It's a bullshit waste of time to pay attention to all these rumors and crap.
You don't have to pay attention to
I'm
them.
not paying attention to it. The problem is I keep seeing it filling up my RSS and other crap. And I'm like, get this shit out of here. I don't want to see stuff. If it's not true, 100% final thing, and it's not something important that matters, get it the fuck out of here. I don't care.
Scott?
And you shouldn't care either.
I think you're full of shit.
You're full of shit. How am I full of shit?
Well, frankly, one, if you don't like what's in an RSS feed, don't subscribe to it.
I don't. I got some filters going on.
Okay, and two, I mean, it's no different than what happens when a video game comes out. People speculate.
That stuff's bullshit too.
Okay. So what you're basically saying is people should never speculate on anything ever.
No, I'm saying is that you shouldn't be, there's nothing wrong with speculating, right? You can sit around in your forum and say, ooh, wouldn't this be cool? Or ooh, wouldn't this be cool? That's fine. You can IM with your friends. You can sit down and have a discussion and, imagine things and have fun. But don't go posting news articles like, this is true.
People can post whatever they want. Freedom of speech.
Don't be passing it off as news.
How are they passing it off as news? I mean... What was the news, Scott? What article is it that's bothering you?
This particular one seems like it is actually news.
Oh.
But a lot of them aren't.
Like what? Because apparently this is news. They are, in fact, working on selecting a cast. And if people are excited about that because they're interested in movies, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, think about all the speculation that went on about what characters are going to be in Smash Brothers Brawl, and that filled up millions of RSS feeds and websites and people arguing about.
And I was tired of that shit. The only ones I care about are the ones that say, I don't even care at all. I don't want to know who the characters are. It doesn't matter to me. I know the characters are going to be good. What does it matter which ones they are?
Well, you know what, Scott? Then those websites just aren't for you.
That's what I'm saying, and I don't understand the people that the websites are for. Why are you so interested in scrounging up all these useless tidbits of information about something that doesn't exist yet, and you have no control over that information? It's like, what do you... I don't understand the point of it.
Because it's interesting. People like to find out about things. If I'm looking forward to a movie or a video game or something, and there's news about that video game, like some details about when it's going to come out, or
when it's going to come out is important,
or who's working on it,
or
what art they might have, or maybe, it's going to be a rehash of this, or there's going to be extra levels, or it's going to have online play, or all those rumors and stuff. I like that. I find it interesting, and I read those websites.
But what's the point in knowing that? I mean, you're not going to be able to change it. You're going to find out when it comes out anyway. You're not going to be able to make a decision about it until it actually comes out. So what's the point in knowing that information so far in advance and collecting it bit by bit? And I don't understand.
Scott, what if you just find it interesting?
Why is it interesting?
Why is anything interesting? If someone likes something and they want to seek out information about it, then that's their prerogative, and I find nothing wrong with that at all.
I think I just don't like all this stuff of hyping stuff up with these tidbits of information crap. Frickin', the only reason I would want to know about something like a video game or a movie is to make a decision as to whether to buy it or see it.
Well, I'm sorry that the rest of the world is not as simple as you.
What do you mean? The rest of the world is freaking stupid following this shit like it's so important, wasting their goddamn time.
Frankly, Scott, I'm just absolutely surprised at the sheer amount of venom used. That was kind of a crazy rant you went on just now.
Because it really bothers me that you have all these people.
Why would it bother you what other people like?
It's not that it's what other people like. It's that these people are so crazed about things that aren't substantial or real. About this completely superficial, useless piece of information, and they're hanging on to it like it's actually this humongous, amazing news of some sort.
How are they crazed? And is there any example of that? Because you're just kind of saying stuff right now.
I see these people.
What people? Where?
Nerds on forums and places.
So it's no different than when we get excited about something.
But what do I get excited about?
Well, maybe you just don't get excited about anything, but normal people do.
Exactly. I don't get excited about things until they're real, until they exist, until they're final, until it's something that actually matters.
Scott,
until it's something
I'll say
that's
that
important.
I got excited about the Firefly movie when it was not even a rumor. It was just they should make a Firefly movie, and no one had said anything yet, and I was already excited.
Yeah.
And I followed...
What the fuck?
Or politics. The Democratic and the Republican primaries. I can't make any decisions yet. The primaries are a long, long way off, and nothing I do right now matters. But I'm still paying attention to the field. I'm still interested in what's going on.
Notice how I don't pay attention to that at all until it matters.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is people can be interested in different things, and people have different tastes in things.
And I think it's a waste of time to pay attention to shit that don't matter.
You mean shit that doesn't matter.
Right, exactly.
Unless you were using the word shit without an S on the end somehow in the plural.
Also that.
See, the only thing that bothers me is bad grammar.
Yeah. Either way.
I don't know why this bothers you so much, and that was kind of a crazy rant.
It's bothering me.
Okay. I pretty much disagree with you.
Tell me what movie... Tell me only if something is real, and when it's coming out, and how much it'll cost, and what it is.
In fact, Scott, I'll even say that I'm excited about the fact that I learned a while ago that series of novels, the Temeraire books about the Napoleonic Wars with Dragons that I found so wonderful and delicious and great. Peter Jackson likes them, and he's optioned the rights to make the movies. And I'm already excited about that, and I'm kind of following it to see what comes of it.
But you don't know he's going to actually make the movies.
No, I don't.
Option doesn't mean shit.
No, I don't. But I know that he says that if things go the way he'd like them to, he'd like to. So
why do you even... So you're getting excited. You could be getting your hopes up for nothing.
You know what? Nothing is certain in this world, so just about anything I could get my hopes up for. There's a chance it might not come through, but you know what? I get excited anyway. This whole idea of keep expectations low and never hope or never dream for anything is really just kind of banal and silly.
Well, while I don't actually consciously say you shouldn't have hopes or expectations for anything.
Well, that's pretty much what you explicitly are saying.
But I think what it is that from being on the internet so much... And from
so you're the lord of the internet who gets to say what goes on the internet now.
It's
you're
not.
Such an
that's
expert
not what
on
I'm
the
saying
internet.
at all. As I'm saying is from swimming in this information for so long, I just don't. I don't expect anything. I don't care. I don't hope for anything. I only care about what is now, and all these there's just so much rumors and bullshit on the net that anything that isn't substantiated right now fact, I don't give a shit. Like these Apple people, they're like, an iPhone's coming. Until the iPhone was in the store, I just completely ignored every iPhone story. I didn't give a shit. Until, they were like, ooh, new iMacs, and new iMacs are coming, they're coming. Until they said, here's the picture of it, I didn't click on a single goddamn link. And it's just, I guess from experience, I sort of been trained to be that way, and the stuff that goes against my training, I filter it out, and because I filter it out, it sort of has, it's like associated negatively in my mind as negative, get that out of here.
Okay.
So,
all I really have to say, and this is definitely a somewhat inside joke, but like I reviewed on our last Geek Fight, I really like these Prince of Nothing books, and a few people compared me to Kellis in the books, a character, and Scott is reminding me more and more of Kaner, or however you pronounce that guy's name, and I think this argument just kind of illustrated that in a funny way to me. But that's not going to mean anything to the rest of you.
Anyway.
I think our friend Alex is probably laughing right now, but that's about it.
Yes. Anyway,
I
don't give a shit if someone has been cast in a movie that's not important, especially if you're not 100% sure they've been cast in the movie, or if you're not even 100% sure the movie's going to even be in the theater.
Okay, Scott.
Call me when there's a camera rolling.
Well, if you're swimming in the pool then, the pool of the internet, and what you perceive as a turd floats by, just get out of the pool. Don't complain about the pool. You're like the people who get on Dig.
Well, no, it's because I'm swimming in the pool, and I'm having a good time, and I got all these people shitting in the pool, and I got to kick their asses out.
But you don't own Dig, and the masses own Dig, and whatever they want goes up. So if you don't like what's on Dig, don't go there.
And I just filter it out. I'm all right. But the point is...
Oh, if you filter it out and you're all right, then why does it bother you?
It's still, I guess, not all the turds can, you got a net.
Oh,
the
so
net
you're
can
not
only
filtering it fully. You can't filter properly.
You can't make a perfect filter. It just doesn't happen. There's
all
no
right.
such thing.
Well, Scott's crazy ranting aside, I couldn't find any anime news I cared about at all. And I'm just going to talk about this briefly, but there's a story here. It looks like it happened in New Zealand. There was a funeral procession. Now, the laws about funeral processions differ all around the world, and even in different states in the U.S. But there are places in the United States where if someone dies, they will put the body in a casket and put it in a hearse, and then that hearse will drive from the church where the ceremony or whatever happened.
Or the funeral home or whatever.
Yeah. To the cemetery where they're going to bury the person.
Yep, because, old churches and stuff, they have cemeteries right next to the church, like on the church land. So then they just carry the casket out of the church and put it in the ground.
But that's not the point. The point is that there will often be a funeral procession, which dates back to a lot of old and, I think, stupid customs, but...
Well, except for the New Orleans ones. Watch a James Bond movie.
Only
Live and Let
if
Die.
there are international sexy super spies fighting it out secretly within the parade.
Yep.
Otherwise, not cool.
No, as long as it's a parade down the street with awesome jazz music, then it's cool.
I have a somewhat controversial opinion that, in general, I know that respect for the dead was one of the early signs among a lot of people who study civilization of the dawning of civilization and culture and that sort of thing. I'm of the mind that society and culture should move beyond respect for the dead, and I don't think that it serves any more purpose. But that is neither here nor there.
I think you should respect the dead, but I don't associate that with respect the dead body, because a body is just a lump of flesh. But the person and who they were and the memory of who they were should be respected.
But that's respect for the former living. That's different from respect for the dead.
So you're saying dead as in corpse.
Well, and it's very complicated. I don't want to get into it. Suffice to say, specifically the corpses, I think cemeteries are perhaps the stupidest idea ever.
I think cemeteries are pretty impractical.
Well,
However,
what they'll do...
While I agree they are impractical, I kind of want a mausoleum.
Well,
just because I like mausoleums.
What they'll often do is the hearse will go, and then all the relatives and people who are going to the stupid funeral will put little flags on their car and follow the thing. And depending on the laws... they now have full, perfect right-of-way over stop signs, traffic lights, anything. And they go straight to the funeral and cause all sorts of shit, terrible traffic everywhere they go. And I hate funeral processions. I ran into them a lot as a kid, driving around where I grew up. And they just, suddenly one would come around, and it was illegal to get in their way or to cut them off. And even if you had a green light and they had a red light, you had to let them go. And they'd block traffic forever, and you weren't allowed to pass them or cut through them or anything. And I just think the whole idea of it is stupid, and I think that these customs should be utterly annihilated.
I agree. If you have people who want to drive from place A to place B, even if there are a lot of them, why can't everyone just drive from place A to place B? Why do you have to go in sort of this line of unbreakableness?
Well,
just
apparently,
everyone go.
Apparently, a funeral procession here, and I read more that this happens a lot. They were going, and the guy at the front driving the hearse was speeding. So a cop pulled the funeral procession over.
Good.
During the course of being pulled over, which was done in a very orderly manner, there were a whole bunch of accidents because everyone in this procession was a moron who doesn't know how to hit the brakes.
They got what they deserved.
And they're mad. They're bloody furious, quote, with the police, and they thought it was absolutely disgusting. And all I have to say is...
While I disagree with speeding, you were speeding. Cop pulled you over.
Apparently, too, the funeral director has been caught before doing this sort of thing.
I guess he thinks because he's in the funeral procession thing, he can speed, and he probably likes speeding in his hearse.
However, I am of the mind that everyone who was involved in an accident in the funeral procession deserved exactly what they got. I hope they all get tickets for following too closely or something. And I generally don't like funeral processions. I'm sorry that wasn't anime related, but there's just nothing to talk about.
Well, I mean, basically the problem is that all the news that would be anime, manga, or comics was stuff that came out of the San Diego Comic-Con. But all of that news is along the lines of, OMG, here's a pilot for a new TV show. We don't watch TV. OMG, these two people are going to be writing and drawing this comic book. We don't read those comic books.
Well, it doesn't help that the few newses I cared about I already talked about.
Yes, and none of the newses that were there are anything big or earth-shattering. They're all the sort of superficial who gives a shit stuff that I was just complaining about. So there's nothing to say about them. It's just flat information, and there's no comment to make unless you're really into that thing, in which case the only comment you can make is, I approve or I disapprove, and here's why. And since we're so indifferent on any of that stuff, there's nothing for us to say.
It's not that I'm indifferent so much as I don't have anything interesting to say about these things.
Well, do you have anything interesting to say about, say, the fact that, I don't know, so-and-so and so-and-so have been moved from one superhero comic to a different superhero comic?
I could talk about how the fact that they shuffle artists around is probably one of the problems with superhero comics. I could go on this whole sort of tangent about that.
Yeah, but that's not related to the specific news. That's just an in general kind of thing about superhero comics.
Yeah, and the news is just a catalyst. Like now, my news was just a catalyst to get a tiny and somewhat less insane than your rant about funeral processions.
I think the only difference between the sanity of our rants was that we agree on yours, and you seem to disagree with mine.
I think the other difference is you were spreading the obscenity around a little bit, and I didn't so much.
What's wrong with the obscenity?
Because while I dislike funeral processions, I don't care. I'm kind of indifferent. If I see one, I don't suddenly go into a blind fury.
I don't go into a blind fury either, but I do go, grumble, grumble.
Anyway... It's time for Things of the Day.
You know, I'm thinking that, yesterday we had that whole crazy argument that got cut out of the show, right?
Yeah.
And today we sort of just kind of went a little bit crazy there. You think maybe the weather is affecting the show?
I don't think so at all, because you started the first argument pretty much straight up. And the second one that we had just now, it was at least 50-50. I think your crazy rant was crazy, and I said so. We didn't really argue so much.
Yeah. But I do feel like, I don't know.
I don't think it's the weather. I think it's just that there hasn't been a lot of interesting news to talk about. And when I filled out the schedule for like the next 2 months of Geeknights, I guess I'm more excited about some of the shows in the future than I am about the ones coming up right now.
Yeah. Oh, well. We'll try to next week. Maybe even tomorrow.
We're giving you guys what you want because we get more requests for arguments than we do for...
I think we get those mostly from longtime listeners and our friends, and I'm not convinced that a lot of the more, I don't know, the field, how they say in golf, it's like Tiger Woods or the field. I think the field of listeners
I think it's just what's ever happening recently, because whenever we argue a lot, we get a lot of people saying, wow, you guys need to lay off and not argue. And whenever we don't argue, we get a bunch of people saying, man, bring back the arguments.
Oh, well, whatever.
It's kind of like whenever we change anything, it's like half the people say they want it the old way and half the people want it the new way.
What's your thing of the day?
All right, I'll be real quick about this. In Russia, in Siberia, I don't think this was found recently. I think it's just there's pictures of it now. There's this old, they call it ancient fortress that's built in the middle of an island deep inside Siberia.
Okay.
And it's really cool. However...
I saw that link, but I think the picture was dead, so I didn't get to see it. Show me.
Oh, the pictures are really cool.
Move out of the way.
Then I can't talk. I'm not
I want to see the Siberian fortress.
But the thing I found really interesting about this is that, it's ancient.
How ancient is it?
And then they give the date, which is dated more than 1,500 years ago. Now, 1,500 years ago Rome was Rome had already fallen.
That's not too old then.
Yeah, I mean, it's ancient. Maybe it's just because I'm really, really studying Roman history now, like more so than I have been ever before. I'm even kind of done with the Byzantine history because I've learned a lot of it. I'm moving further back.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not pre-Rome, I can't really consider it to be ancient.
Well, it seems like the more you study something like Roman history,
except in a hyperbolic fashion,
the less ancient it seems. Like the Middle Ages and like the Renaissance seems like it happened yesterday, and the Middle Ages are like the day before yesterday, and then there was Rome.
Uh-huh.
So it's weird how this doesn't feel old to me, but before I was really into Roman and Byzantine history, this probably would have seemed really old and really cool.
This reminds me of something I learned when I was a kid. Something I didn't learn in school is, I like castles. I like castles. Buildings made of rocks, pretty cool. What?
So these pictures are on this like English Russia blog. It's like a blog about Russia in English.
Yep.
So I just scrolled down randomly while Scott was talking, and you can comment on the site, but there's an anti-spam captcha, and
it's in Cyrillic.
No, the picture is the word Soviet in red.
All right. So
anyway,
I like castles, and I didn't get to see too many castles when I was a kid. I think we went to this one castle called like Gillette Castle in Connecticut, and I have actually a snow globe from there, which is supposedly really rare because they stopped making them.
Well, there's Bannerman Castle, which is near our house.
There's Bannerman Castle, and there are those cloisters in the city, right? And when I was a kid, I wasn't so much thinking, and you know how me and the history and the years, right?
Yeah. What was that argument we had way back in the day that the Romans learned about armor and swords from the knights of the Middle Ages?
Yeah, so whatever. So
I'm going to bring that up for the rest of your life.
Probably. Yeah, and so when I was a kid, I would like drive by and, I saw like, the cloisters, and I was like, ooh, castles. Were there Kniggets in those castles? Because I think castles, Kniggets, right? And my parents were like, this castle is on this side, is in the Western Hemisphere. This castle can't possibly be older than like 1600 something. And I was like, oh, snaps. And I totally realized that every castle in the Western Hemisphere sucks unless it's like an Aztec pyramid, which isn't really a castle.
It is pretty interesting when you think about the state of the natives of North America when the West eventually discovered them and started, the raping, pillage, exploitation, colonization, whatever. And compare that to the civilizations that existed in Europe or in China, 1,000 years before, 2,000 years before. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating.
It's kind of like in Civ 2, when you're playing the game and you get your infantry and you get your gunpowder, and I got my boats and I'm going around and I got iron. And then I stumble upon some guy with some cataphracts and he's trying to take over my city. Or I find like this gigantic civilization that never found the wheel.
All right.
The thing is, I've never, in the course of playing Civ 2, not immediately conquered those people without regret.
Conquistadorim. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to give you the reveal of why I had the crazy rant.
Okay.
You ready for this thing of the day?
I'm ready.
There's a rumor going around that there's going to be a new Toyota AE86, and there's a picture of it.
That's kind of old news.
I know, but what else did I have?
Yeah.
And also, the reason I chose this is I put it with the pre-crazy rant. You see what I just did there?
I see what you did. I see what you did there.
You see what I did there? Check this shit out. It's basically, it doesn't look anything, well, I won't say it doesn't look anything like the original AE86.
The only thing that was special, the AE86 was just a chassis.
Pretty much. But basically it's the same car in spirit, but it's a new car. And it's going to be really light, really small, really low to the ground, and it's going to have like 120 horsepower. That's not so bad, according to this here.
Man, that's the same horsepower my current car has.
Yeah, if I was buying cars now, I'd actually consider this car greatly.
Now, the thing is,
if it existed.
I think that this is brilliant because the riced out culture is actually really kind of popular in the U.S.
Yep.
And a lot of those people, even though they're not really anime fans at all, a lot of them know about Initial D. A lot of them.
Not only that, but in Japan. This picture here is from Japan with Japanese writing on it. They're all into the Initial D still. They'll buy it.
Yep. And I really think that if companies released cars that were from Initial D, only affordable, and like if someone remade the Silady somehow, like this is a Silady that we've made now, just like the old Silady, they'd make a lot of money from people.
I mean, look at how cars like the Honda Civic just sell insanely because it's so riceable. And the other companies, like, they don't have very many cars that are very riceable, at least not as riceable as some of the others, you know? And Toyota releasing a new AE86 would pretty much be making a car that's riceable on purpose to make a lot of money. I mean, the Corolla, not so riceable, you know? I mean, any car is riceable to a point, but this car will be like the rice money-making machine if they put it out here, and they should.
Right, so let's talk about anime at least a little bit.
Yes.
Luckily, it's going to be kind of short. You see, we had I had the whole schedule filled out about what we were going to talk about in the shows and the comics and whatever. But then we watched the first episode of one of the new anime coming out.
Well, I knew this anime was coming because Emily said something about it. And basically all I heard was, there's a show called this, and it's a mafia show. Which tells Scott, good show coming. Mafia, good. By default, no matter what, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, we didn't have any expectations about it. It was just, all right, this is a show that has some potential, and a lot of shows had potential. I mean, Ergo Proxy, I think, still has, I haven't watched it all.
Nope.
But when I saw that, I was excited, and Baccano, I'm really excited about still and all that, but this is just a show like that. The show looks like it might be better than the majority of the dross that we've been seeing lately.
Yep. So, the first episode finally comes out, and the show is called Baccano, Baccano, exclamation point. And I think in Italian that means noise, or something like that. And it's a show that is
Narita translated as stupid commotion.
Uh-huh. And it's a show that is about mafias, I guess, and a whole big cast of characters and other things.
See, regardless of what it's about, because I actually went into it not knowing anything at all about it.
All I knew was mafias. That was all I knew.
All I knew was the title. And from that, I think, and then Scott and Emily were like, yeah, mafia something. So I think, all right, a show about mafia. This is going to be great. And Scott accidentally pulled up the preview trailer instead of the episode. And it was all weird. And
it was like people on a train killing each other.
Like murders on a train and a kid with a weird scar tattoo something on his face and kind of surreal, almost supernatural. It didn't look anything like what I expected.
No, it looked like it looked to me like a dark, sort of weird Murder on the Orient Express kind of deal in the trailer. So then we watched the actual show. All right, the show opens up, right? First, they give you that old sponsor. Well, no, first they give you the opener, right? The opener has a pretty cool song. Can we get the opener in the show? I don't think so. Right?
I don't want to bother. We could, but I don't care.
The opener is a lot like the opener to Snatch or one of those movies.
See, that's the thing. As soon as we saw the actual opener, all I could think was, this is Snatch the anime.
Yeah, they had all this really cool music, and what they would do in the opener is they would show you a character doing something, then they would freeze frame the character, put their name on the screen in English, right? English letters, and then have a cool transition to do the next character. And there were a whole lot of characters, and they took the entire opener just going through all these characters. Show a character, show their name, smooth transition. Show a character, show a name, smooth transition.
Now, the thing is, every single character they showed, you think, wow, that's obviously the main character. Oh, wow, that's obviously the main character. And every one of them, just from what little you see, you probably already like them as a character. And you think, wow, there could probably be a show just about this one person.
I think that I didn't really feel that, but I did feel that none of the characters are really put above or below the others. Usually you feel like some characters are more important and some are less important and some are main and some are supporting. But it really felt like every character they showed was equal. Like they are all equally important and equally in the plot, and none of them are minor or more major than others.
Most importantly,
except for these two characters, because they had the most time in the opener, and they're the last characters you see, and also the first characters you see in the opener. So I think they might be slightly more important than the others.
They all just reeked of main character. Like if you saw any one of them in some other anime, you'd think, oh, they're a main character. They're somewhat important to the plot. They're not just going to get killed off randomly or anything. They'll have a name.
They all have a name. They show you the name in the opener. All right. So after that, they give you the sponsor screen, right? But the sponsor screen, like where they usually say, oh, take your day, okirishimasu. It's brought to you by our sponsors.
Consume.
Right. The guy said it in English.
Now, I don't know if they did that in English or if the fan subbers just being funny, because that is possible.
I think they did in English. I mean, the openers, the characters' names were in English.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, English is still pretty hip.
Yeah, it So I don't know. Does that mean that this show is meant for us in America more than it's meant for the Japans? I don't know.
But regardless of all that, all right, so that opener happens. Now I'm not sure what the show is about because it still looks like it's about mafia something. And other than the weird trailer we saw a few snippets of, I don't see anything weird about it.
Right. So it opens up with this guy with a monocle and this little girl. But she's not super little or stupid. She's just, I don't know, is she a teenager? I can't really tell.
No, she's not a teenager. She's a really young little girl.
But she acts smart. She just doesn't look very old at all. She looks like she's maybe 12 at the most.
Well, the thing is,
but she talks
the
like
show
she's...
opens with a conversation between these two characters, and you don't know anything about them at all. You don't really know anything about what the show's about, and nothing from the opener really told you what to expect.
It just said, here are the characters, here are their names.
Because it was all over the place. And these characters proceed, they talk in a really cryptic way for a while, but it actually all kind of makes sense, and you kind of follow what's going on, and it's kind of interesting. And then you realize that they start arguing as to who are the main characters of the story.
Gee, I don't know. On the one hand, it was really clever and awesome, but on the other hand, it was slightly sort of forced and obvious and not subtle.
But to me, it wasn't really that forced because then they also start arguing about when the story started. And
that part was actually pretty cool.
Yes, and it keeps cutting back to them. But between them talking and arguing about when the story started, who the main character is, who's moving it, what's going on, it cuts to these flashbacks from all throughout time. It seems like almost everything they showed is a scene from the show that we haven't gotten to yet, either from the future or the past.
Yep. And you learn from the people talking that these two people, the old guy is like the vice director of a newspaper of some sort, and the girl, I guess, is his assistant, I think. I think that's what they say. I think
there's a funny bit where whenever she says something insightful, the guy always says, like, you get 384 points.
And she's like, out of how many?
And she always has this really funny look on her face.
And the guy just keeps talking, and he doesn't say anything.
Now, the point I really want to make is that they do this interesting thing that in any other anime would have been forced and stupid. You know, a bunch of two characters arguing about who the main characters of the show are. It's really kind of meta, breaking the fourth wall and all that sort of thing. But the show pulled it off to the point that I feel like it was done well, that this could be a really good mechanic or device in the show.
It was done pretty well. I mean, it didn't, normally, if like you had that kind of thing, it might be the sort of thing you'd put at like the end of your show, and it'd be like an end of Ava kind of thing. That would be all weird.
It reminds me a little bit. Now, I'm not going to compare the show to Cowboy Bebop yet. Yeah. Because there's no way you can know. Mm-hmm. But Cowboy Bebop was a show that basically came out and had the sheer testicular fortitude to say, we are making a new genre. We are going into uncharted waters. We are doing something amazing and different. And then it backed that up 100%.
Yep.
This show is treading into those waters a little bit.
A little bit.
In the sense that they're going balls out and saying, we're doing something that if we don't do it right is going to make our show really stupid and forced.
Oh, it'll make it so stupid if they don't do it right.
And thus far, they haven't fallen on their faces yet. Yeah, and that means a lot to me.
The only negative thing I can say about the show so far is that it's a little bit hard to follow what's going on because of the crazy stuff that they're doing. Cutting all over the place in chronology, showing all these different characters without formally and introducing them slowly, but sort of just throwing them in your face.
Yes, when we say cutting around, it's not like you expect. You'll have to watch it to see, but literally, there's no transition. It's like guy doing something, cut to a different angle of guy doing something, cut to what feels like a different angle, but it's actually a different scene at a different time with different characters.
Yep. And I gotta say, as confusing as it wasn't stupidly confusing, but it was pretty confusing. I watched the first episode a second time, and now I got a really good handle on it.
I gotta say, it felt confusing, and there's a lot of books do this too. Not a lot, but books that I think are good. If you do it right, it's a really nice thing. If you introduce concepts or proper nouns or anything that is specific to the world of the art, the world that you're creating in the work, and you don't explain it, but you use it in the proper context, and if you do it in the right way, people will start to learn on their own how everything works without realizing it, and they'll learn a lot more about the world without having to have lengthy, stupid, boring exposition about the world.
Yep, but the only problem with that...
If done poorly, you just get proper noun gobbledygook.
Also, if the problem is that you can't get someone into the world quickly. So if you've only got like one issue of a comic book or one episode of an anime, it's sort of difficult for people to get all the way there and reach understanding in that, one unit of the work.
Also, some people, I'll say this. If you're one of those people who tries to figure out what's going on, like really hard when you're watching a show, I think that will hinder your understanding of what happens in the first episode, because you'll spend too much time worried about who's who and the names of the families.
And already the scene will change.
And all this business. And honestly, if you just roll with it, you'll figure out a lot more real quick. Just don't try to remember the names of all the people. Just pay attention to what's going on and just go with it.
If you really want to understand it, just watch it twice. I watched the first episode 2 times, and the second time, I completely understood everything that was going down. I was like, oh, I get it. Oh, duh, it's not that complicated.
Now, the second moment that really stood out is the show went along, and it's kind of interesting, and you get all these glimpses of the future and the past, and you see scenes that I'm sure we're going to forget about, and then we'll get to, like, episode 12.
I love that shit. Utena did that shit.
Oh, God, Utena was like the king, queen, and
emperor.
emperor.
They show you a really short, like, clip. Like, they'll show you, like, I don't know, a rock flying across the sky, or they'll show you like a bird standing on something.
I'll give you a specific scene. There's a scene in Utena kind of early on when Anthony-Himemiya, the Rose Bride girl, the weird girl, the Indian girl, and she's just sitting in a classroom doing something weird. And it lingers on this scene for a while, and you think, all right, that scene just showed me that Anthony's a little weird, something I knew. I'll bet they just needed to fill out this episode that was kind of bland and short. And then you see the whole show, and you go back and watch that again, and it's like, whoa.
I know what she's doing now.
Damn.
Dams.
The show can definitely pull that off. I love that when a movie shows you something, and it's all right there. You're just too stupid and uninformed to figure it out.
Yeah.
But theoretically, you could have.
Within the first episode, they do that. I'll actually give you a specific example from the first episode of Baccano.
I think I know which one you're going to get.
Well, no, they show you really quickly at some point one of the characters that you probably only remember from the opener getting like... there's like some girl with like a spear that has like a cross of blades at the end of it, and like she cuts his ear, and then it's like a 2-second clip, like cuts his ear, and you're just like, huh? And then it goes away and deals with something else instead. And then like really close to the end of the episode, you see the guy, like they go back to the guy suddenly, like just cut to him, and he's like, ow, my ear, something, and then he says something else after that. And I didn't notice that those two, like it's like they took a scene and they just cut like the first 5 seconds of it and put it way early in the episode instead of putting them together.
Now, I really don't want to ruin more about what's going on because I don't want to poison the well. I really want all of you to watch the show and figure out and just experience the revelations as you will.
I also don't want to
spoil anything more. But there is a
moment,
the moment other than when they start arguing about who the main characters are, there's a point at which a hobo tries to stab some dude.
Oh, that's a good moment.
The scene does not play out the way you think it's going to play out.
No.
And then when you think you know what's going on, like you think, oh, so it's going in that direction. No, it's not. And it's great.
It is pretty damn awesome.
Of course, related to that, this is one of those shows where there isn't a lot of violence. It's not like there's uncharacteristic or just violence without purpose or people getting blown up. It's none of those Ichi the Killer things. But when there is violence, they do not dick around, and it is brutal, and it's not really graphic.
It's like Godfather.
Except for that one scene.
It's a lot like the violence in The Godfather. When there's violence, OMG, it's sort of real.
They go out of their way to make
mafias. That's what there is.
I mean, it's not super bloody and gory, but it has that hint of realism to the point that you wince a little bit. And even me, I mean, I watched Ichi the Killer and laughed all the way through it. But
because Ichi the Killer is a lot of that sort of zipper on the back of the monster costume.
True.
Gross violence, and not the sort of, it's like you can have a lot less quantity of blood, a lot less, quantity of bullets and guts all over the place.
This is the violence
but be more effective in making people wince or feel uncomfortable because your violence is more realistic and less sort of, fake zipper on the back of the monster violence.
I think the reason is this is the violence of permanence. I mean, take a scene where a guy in an anime punches another guy straight up in the face, and then a scene change covers all the damage. Maybe he has a bandage on or a little scratch or something, but the character's otherwise fine. Now, imagine the same scene, only he punches the guy, and you see very clearly blood and a tooth fly out of his mouth.
Yep.
And then in the next scene, his jaw is swollen.
That's why slow-mo boxing it is really painful to watch. All right.
And I gotta say, there is one kind of gross scene near the end where the guy is talking to the police.
Yeah,
Where
that was pretty gross right
it's a
there.
scene where I'm looking at it, and Emily's looking at it, and Scott's looking
It's
at
so
it.
quick, you might not even catch the grossness.
But
And-
we're all thinking, is that what I think it is?
And it was. I watched it a second time on the train today, and it was totally what you think it is.
By the time you realize what it is, you've already missed the next scene because you forgot about the fact that the show's going to cut away.
Yep.
And while it's gross,
Basically shows you something really gross for like a half a second and then cuts away.
I got to admit, I found that scene hilarious just because of the delayed reaction of the police officers
I
to what
think
they
it
were
was sort
witnessing.
of like this weird scene because the top half of the frame was funny where all the police were, but the bottom half where the gross part was gross.
And
it
also
was
the
like
fact that
the top was good and the bottom was not so good.
right before that happens, there is a little bit of dialogue between him and another character on the screen, and you suddenly really hate him as a character.
Yeah, because he says some pretty crazy and bad stuff. And then it's gross. And then
Now-
police are funny.
I think the reason I'm more excited about this show than I've been about any anime in a long time. And even though the show might not, I mean, I was the same way about Noir. The first episode of Noir had all this potential, and I thought it was going to be great. And
It sucked.
Noir ended up being, if you compare how good the first episode was to how stupid the last, I don't know.
I think the problem with Noir is that they used awesome music to make their show seem better than it was.
Yes, kind of like Dot Hack.
Yes. Same composer.
Same
by the way.
composer, yeah.
Yes.
Or what was that other one? The one we reviewed, the stupid one.
I don't remember.
That was the same as Noir. Or
the
Cazador.
Cazador de la Bruja. Yeah.
But this show is, whether or not it's good, they've decided to do something different. It's not like any anime I've seen in a long time. It's a breath of fresh air. And if they pull it off, it's going to be one of those shows that stands out as, you know what? All the anime right now is the same moe crap. We're going to fix that.
All right, there's only two other things I got to say about this show before we end this business. The guy who's the director of the newspaper, something, the assistant newspaper director, whatever.
I totally forgot about that.
Right, that guy, he has the monocle. He's talking to the young girl for they're sort of the central characters, at least of this episode.
Now think about
the
it.
ones who talk about the main character.
I
and
think
all
you
that
might
stuff.
know him.
The voice actor in Japanese for that guy is the same voice actor for Chiyo's dad in Azumanga Daioh, and also Mekazawa. And I gotta say, I really like the way that guy says
Doshite.
It just says it like so slow. He's
I can't do it.
Doshite.
Dude.
I can't do it, but the guy says Doshite in a really awesome way, and that's how I knew it was him as soon as he said that.
Now, it was funny because I was thinking, that voice sounds familiar, but I couldn't quite pin
and
it.
I said, I think it's Chiyo's dad. And then when he said Doshite, I'm like, it's Chiyo's dad.
I was 50-50, but Scott was like, I'm sure. And sure enough, Scott was right.
I was right. Now, there's another character.
Now,
His name is
Mr. Luck.
His name is like Luck, and he's part of one of the mafia families. I think the one that begins with a G. I'm not sure, but his first name is Luck, so he's like Luck, and then his last name is mafia family name that begins with a G. And I think he's like, I don't think he's the head of that mafia family, but he's like maybe like one of the upper guys. He's pretty important.
Now, both of us, the guy said pretty much 2 words, and Scott and I were like, it's him.
It's him. The voice actor they got for this character, who I think is pretty awesome, is our man, the Takahito Koyasu.
I gotta say, that guy still, this Luck character is the same as every other character he voice acts as. He always plays the same character. The cool, suave guy that you really like, who's just too cool for school and really smooth and
A badass, and he can't be touched because he's so awesome.
the guy who's always underestimated by his opponents, yet always wins in the end.
Yeah.
Except against, well, I can't spoil.
Yes, but yeah, the same voice actor as Toga in Utena and Takahashi Ryosuke in Initial D.
Hotohori and Fushigi Yugi.
Yes.
Bud Mint and KO Century Beast. He's my favorite voice actor ever.
Probably. And so you got these 2 amazing voice actors in the show. Not to mention, I think I recognized some other voice actors in there. I'm not super fans of them, nor did I 100% recognize them because I don't know that much about voice actors.
Yeah, we didn't
I
look
only
through
know-
super much, but I feel like this show might have an all-star cast.
I think it does have basically an all-star cast of anime voice actors. It's not an all-star cast of I don't know, Japanese movie stars or anything, but
Yeah, it's not like-
they do with the Mononoke, not the Mononoke, the Ghibli movies. When Disney does it, they get like Hollywood real actors.
It's always like Billy Crystal.
Yeah, well, Billy Crystal was a really good job as the
Billy
Calcifer.
Crystal is a fantastic voice actor, and I like him as a person quite a bit. I find him hilarious.
He is a pretty funny guy, especially in Princess Bride. But yeah, so this is a show that if you like anime and you watch the fan subs, probably a good idea to watch this show. If you don't, I recommend you watch this first episode 2 times.
I'll say this. The less you like the average anime that's come out recently, I think the more you're going to like this show.
And if you don't like weird stuff, this will probably just weird you out.
I do want to say, give it a chance, because there's something very, very important that we did not spoil. And at least learn that before you decide if you think you'll like this show, because it's kind of... You won't guess what it is, but you should be able to figure it out during the course of the episode.
Yeah, there's another element to this show that is not expected in a mafia show. That
Not
really
at
mixes
all.
it up.
And that aspect, I think, is going to make a lot of people who would otherwise brush this show off watch it.
I think how that aspect is handled is going to make or break the show.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.